From Koenigstein Road in the east to Casitas Gap in the west, an orange curtain has descended across the Ojai Valley. This is Ojai Talk of the Town. Hey everyone, Brett Bradigan, editor of your Ojai magazines, the monthly and quarterly. Our guest this episode is Robin Goldstein, the author, chef, and all-around food expert. So this is one of my favorite type of conversations, talking about something I'm very passionate about, which is food. So expect to have a very lively back and forth about her long and storied career in the business, which she was basically born into, and what brought her to Ojai and what she's got planned next. Hey Robin, thanks for joining me. We were just talking about the restaurant business and where you have some very early memories. Yeah, the Golden Parrot.
The Golden Parrot, yeah. My grandparents opened the Golden Parrot in the 50s, and that's probably like my first memory of being in the restaurant and being drawn to food.
Yeah. Was there a certain energy to it, or was it like the aromas, or was it the people, the noise, the moving around?
I mean, this place was amazing. It was a five-story building, historical building, and you walked up this grand staircase, and there were 3 dining rooms and a beautiful bar, and everything was immaculately decorated. My grandmother had very good taste, and she decorated with all antiques. And then I guess my first memory was going in the kitchen, which was on the bottom floor, and how the waiters just effortlessly floated around with the trays and food, bringing them upstairs. They also had a dumb waiter.
Well,
and
they had smart waiters and dumb waiters.
It wasn't even electric. They had to with
the hand carts. I love all those old gadgets.
Old rope. And I was not old enough to work there, but my grandmother would bring me down in the kitchen, and I'd watch. I remember her name. Her name was Mamie, and she would make all the sticky buns and pastries and pies, and I would just. They would let me go behind the bar and just kind of help or put ice in a glass or something. I mean, literally, I was
feel like you're really
that I was part of the team, but we really literally were born in the restaurant because we lived there in that building for a number of years.
Building as a restaurant.
Our whole family lived there.
That sounds ideal.
It was. I'm sure I was fed really well back then.
So, did you think, even as a child, that food, culinary arts, is going to be your path?
I think so. I mean, really, since I started working at 14, I always worked in some sort of food.
What was your first job?
My first job was at, it was called the Cheese and Wine Store in Bethesda, Maryland, right outside of D.C., and it was a sub shop, basically, but they also had...
Hoagies and grinders.
Yeah.
I love those.
They had a cheese department, too, like on the other side of the shop, and nobody ever wanted to go over there. And I was like, I'll go over there. And
why wouldn't they?
Because it smelled like cheese. I mean, it was stinky, and they had these big double-handled knives, and the owner's son was the manager, and he's like, who wants to learn how to, cut the cheese and sell the cheeses? And I put my hand up.
You said, I'd love to cut the cheese.
I love to cut the cheese.
I hope you don't say that in an 8th grade classroom.
No. That was my first job, and then went on to work a number, like a half a dozen different restaurants in the area. I always wanted to be in the kitchen. And I didn't really think about it as a career, but I guess it was probably 11th grade as a junior. My grandmother said we should go up to the Culinary Institute in New York.
On the Hudson River Valley?
Yeah.
Where is it?
It's in
Poughkeepsie.
Hyde Park, really.
Hyde Park? Okay.
Yeah. It's not too far from the city. Anyway, I knew nothing about it. I guess she had read an article in the newspaper. She showed me, and she said, let's go up there and just check it out. And so that was the start of my culinary career.
In 11th grade?
Yeah, and then I applied, didn't hear anything, kind of forgot about it, and then I think 3 or 4 months after I graduated high school, she's like, did you ever hear? And I said, no. And so she goes, why don't you give them a call? And I called, and they're like, well, your acceptance date is, I can't remember exactly the date right at this moment, but like I literally started a month later after I called.
Yeah. And that's like the work, you got to know every position, right? On the line, you got to do the sous chefing, pastry chefing, you got to know how to chop a mirepoix.
Well, they teach
cubes.
you. They teach you everything, and it starts with knife skills and beginning baking.
You have to bring your own knives, like carpenters with their tools, right? You got to get your own Victorinox or whatever you're going to use. What are the best knives?
Oh, God, that's such a
loaded question.
Loaded question.
Because the Japanese have different sort of setups, right?
I have like 40 knives and an array of all different brands. But they do give you the knives at school.
Okay.
And I had that knife roll for like probably 20 years. I don't know whatever happened to that, but yeah. That was the start of my very long career.
Yeah. And what were your, the challenges of that? Did you find any particular part of the kitchen? Because the line is just like so fast-paced and such a blur.
Well, that's where I started, and I loved it. The high, fast pace, the energy, and being a woman in the industry in the mid-'80s was, there weren't as many women. Mm-hmm. There were only 3 women in my class, actually.
Of how many?
We had 18 people in our class, and there were 4 classes starting at the same time. And there were 3 in our class, and I would say maybe there were 6 women in the whole entire total.
In your whole cohort, huh?
So
it is a very butch, masculine sort of environment. Probably less now than it was, but
well, there's a lot of ego involved.
Yeah, well, all I know is Kitchen Confidential, Anthony Bourdain, and that was a gripping read. I never thought I'd be so interested in the ins and outs, and the personality conflicts, and the hiring,
drugs.
and the drugs, and the drinking, and how they get through a day. Like I know the way he described getting up at like 4 a.m. to go hit the farmers markets and get the lunch menu together and everything that goes into running a restaurant. It's amazing.
It's very right on. Yeah. I luckily worked for great people, and some of my first chefs in restaurant business I really look up to. I worked for Mary Sue Milliken and Susan Feniger for the Border Grill.
Those names sound familiar.
Border Grill, the 2 hot tamales. I was their first chef at the Border Grill on Melrose.
Wow, how'd you get that gig? Because they were pretty well known at that point. Or did you get in before they really made their name?
It was right when they were making their name at the City Cafe, and then they opened up City after that. And I knew someone who had a job there, and she asked me if I wanted to apply. And so I applied, and I worked my ass off there.
I'll bet.
It was great. It was a small restaurant, maybe 30 seats, but we would turn it over 3 times, and we made everything by hand. I still remember some of the recipes. It's like
really? What were some?
We made 3 different flans, and we had to make like 3 or 4 every night, basically, and we made this amazing rajas dish. It's all Mexican, kind of Yucatan based, and roasting peppers and tomatoes, and we made our own chips and cactus salad with añejo cheese.
Nopales. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was just delicious food, and just so meticulously prepared. And we had a tiny little kitchen, probably as big as this office right here. It was.
Which, for readers, it's not that big.
It's not that big. Anyway, it was
12 by 20 or 12 by 18.
Yeah, it was a tiny kitchen, and but later on, after that, I found catering, and I worked for a really large.
That's a big shift, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a different way of cooking, actually, and
because it's the time between preparation and eating is inevitably going to be much longer than a restaurant, right?
Usually, yeah, and you have to take everything on location. So you have to prep differently. You have to pack everything up. You have to get to the location. Sometimes you haven't seen the location.
Yeah,
more often than not,
it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah,
but have you got surprised by some places like, how am I going to do this here?
Well, I have a couple of fun stories. A lot of times we work in people's garages and bring in the rentals if their kitchen wasn't big enough to, facilitate if it was more than like 20 people. But, you show up to a house and they're like, oh, yeah, our oven doesn't work very, very well. I'm like, very well, or does it work at all? And the party that I went to that I can think of in my mind was a pizza party. I'm like, how are we going to make pizza? Your oven doesn't work. So we used to make the crust in advance so that it wouldn't take as long. And
Yeah, sure.
I cut the pizza crust in half, put the toppings on it, and they luckily had a toaster oven. I can't tell you how many times people would tell me when I arrived that, oh, our stove isn't working very good, or our oven, or, we have no ice maker.
So you hopefully figure this out ahead of time. But there's a lot of things you can't do in catering, right? You wouldn't make French fries or donuts or anything.
Oh, we make everything.
Deep frying. You're gonna take.
You bring a big
fryer?
pot. You bring a big pot and fill it up with oil, and
Okay.
yeah, we made everything. When I learned from this one catering company is that we prepped everything in advance.
Yeah.
So like a private chef would go to their client's house with all the ingredients and start cooking and cook their meals for them or do a party. But with this type of catering, we learned very early on, or I learned very early on, that if you prep most of your ingredients, then you're not caught off guard.
Yeah.
Salad dressings, you might bake the desserts, you might marinate the meats, but we are cooking on site. But we would make everything.
Really?
Homemade.
Even like lamb shanks or
Oh, yeah.
ossobuco or things that take hours and hours?
Well, that we would probably cook in advance.
And just warm
it
yeah.
up. Yeah.
Those are my favorites. I love
Those
beef bourguignon and braised, slow braised meats.
Yeah, yum. I just made some last week.
Oh, yeah?
Braised it in a bottle of Syrah and onions and put it in a cast iron pot with it was a whole boneless leg of lamb, and about 7 hours. It was amazing.
Low and slow.
Low and slow, yeah.
And then
Delicious.
the part I like most about lamb and that is the gremolatas, that you can just make anything. I know Argentinians have the chimichurri, but infinite variety of just
I'll give you a recipe.
for a gremolata.
Well, I call it persillade, which is French, and this was sort of a French Provençal dish with the lamb, and you take a bunch of mint and a bunch of
rosemary,
parsley.
parsley.
Chop it up
Flat
really
leaf parsley,
fine,
or-
flat leaf parsley.
Okay.
You can use the curly leaf if you like. And a couple cloves of garlic. Chop it all up by hand. Don't put it in the processor.
Or with a mortar and pestle.
Yeah, and then add some olive oil, salt, and maybe a little squeeze of lemon or vinegar, and just that's
And
so
then you have
delicious on the lamb.
The au jus from the cooking.
Oh, all the juices just... my mouth is
that's the
watering
best
just
part.
thinking about it.
I know.
Yeah.
I started making a just dried pixie rinds in a pepper grinder. It gets stuck all the time. It's not very convenient because you never get because there's so much oil in there, they always gum up. But wow, the flavor of fresh grated pixie, dried pixie rinds, that really is the base for some of my favorite meals.
That sounds really good. I'm going to have to try that.
Yeah, I love the idea, or the versatility of that and being able to use the local ingredients. So are you still on the East Coast at this point?
Oh, no, I moved right after culinary school. So I moved to California in the mid-'80s.
Oh.
So had a couple fun little jobs right during high school, and then moved here right after. So June of 1984, that's when I started working
During the Olympics.
in a couple restaurants. I probably tried maybe 6 different restaurants, and then a friend of mine actually from school called and said, oh, I know this catering company that needs some help. You should come work with us. And so I didn't leave there for, oh gosh, I was there for 3 years, I think, until I opened.
That's a long time in the food business.
It is. I mean, it's different with restaurants. You jump around, you get as much experience as you can. And I opened up my own catering company at 25.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you feel like you had an entrepreneurial zeal the whole time?
I guess. I mean, really, it just I just was going through the motions, getting the jobs. I just wanted to be in the kitchen. I loved cooking. Like I said, growing up in the restaurant business, my grandparents, and then my dad also had a restaurant. When I was older, I was just always around it, and it just felt like home, and then when I was in the kitchen, I felt like it's my art, really. I mean, I feel very comfortable and confident in the kitchen. Yeah, there's like stressful situations sometimes, but I don't know, I feel like that's the one comment I get from my clients. They're like, "You're so calm. You make it look so easy." And I'm like, well, after 40 years, I should be pretty calm.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you just have to have the temperament for it.
I think I have the temperament.
I also think that part of the allure of kitchen work is that you're just so busy all the time. The idle hands are the devil's playground, that you just don't have time to ruminate and obsess about things because you're always doing something. And I think that's part of the attraction. The only experience I have at all is when I was in boot camp. I got KP, kitchen patrol, for some stupid reason. And I had to work a full shift, which was like 16 hours or something, scrubbing pots. And every time there's a meal turnover, they're just coming in and you're blasting them with a high-pressure hot water. And it's just the scrubbing and everything else. I couldn't believe how fast that day went. It just blitzed past me like, oh, wow. Couldn't believe it.
Well, that's funny that you bring that up about washing dishes, is because everyone thinks, oh, a chef is so glamorous. But, you got to wash your dishes. And especially when you're a private chef like I am, you're going into your clients' homes. They don't always have their housekeepers available. So you're cooking, but there's a lot of cleanup involved.
Because you got to get prepared and serving platters and everything else.
And clean up as you go. Otherwise, you're...
clean up as you go. That's the big... I remember we had 10 people in our house one summer, and early on in Ojai, and it's a long story how it was friends and their friends, and so we were cooking for 10 people. I did most of the cooking for every night, and then some of the other people said, "Oh, let us cook. We're happy to cook." Yeah. No, I don't want you cooking if I'm going to have to do your dishes, because you don't clean up as you go, and you make an enormous mess that's way worse than whatever deliciousness of the food, which probably isn't going to be very good to begin with. So no, let me handle it.
It's okay to make a mess.
I know, but it's not okay to have some, if you clean it up yourself.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. You don't want to be cleaning up somebody else's mess.
Yeah. So, the food world is changing now. You can feel in a good way, I mean, the quality of ingredients and people's tastes have evolved. I feel like food is so much better now than it was when I was growing up. And I was very spoiled. But we're going to be close to 8 billion people here in a year. How is that going to work, having to feed that many people? I mean, I'm sure you've thought about it.
That's, a very long, detailed answer, but...
Well, better you than about anybody else I've had on the show.
I mean, I don't know if we can, solve the world's
I think
food
some of
problem.
Remember that book back in the early 70s, Francine Lagniappe, A Diet for a Small Planet?
Oh, I never read that. No. I mean, really, people are becoming more aware and buying locally, and so really we should not worry about the whole world, but be more involved in our own community.
Yeah, locavores, slow food movement.
It's different everywhere. We're in Ojai, California, so
we have a cornucopia.
We're so blessed. I mean, there's farms all around us, and people really support the local farmers and the local restaurants, and the local restaurants are also supporting the local farms, and people are just more aware, but it's going to be different in Minnesota. Or,
I remember growing up in frozen wasteland, and you go into a supermarket in February or March and lucky to find a few wilted rutabagas or turnips.
Yeah, so we're so blessed here. People are really going more towards plant-based foods.
I think that's part of the solution, is it just is so energy intensive to raise, meat.
But I mean, everything in moderation. I mean, there's nothing wrong with. I'm not a vegetarian, so.
Yeah, I have been, and vegan, just because it was easier to go along with partners and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. I mean, there's only, it's amazing what you can do Especially if you stop looking at, oh, you got to have a meat substitute, or the meat substitute this. No, vegetables can be fine on their own if they're properly prepared.
Yeah, I love vegetarian foods. I cook them all the time for my clients, and I have vegan clients, but I maybe eat meat once a week at the most.
Oh, no, I eat meat every day, but that's because I'm coming off a long vegan stretch.
Oh, gosh.
Now, what is some of the restrictions that you have to deal with when you get a client? Oh, I've got peanut allergies and gluten-free. And
there's always something. There's an allergy or a dietary like or dislike. So you really have to listen to your client and take notes, of course.
What about like kosher kitchen? I wonder about that, because then you got like doubles the amount of preparation and such.
Well, I mean, technically we can't cook kosher because unless they have a kosher household, because it has to be blessed and cleaned a specific way. So I can't cook my food in my kitchen.
You can buy kosher
you can
foods.
buy, if they're kosher style. Oh gosh, this is a whole nother podcast.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I'm fascinated by all the complexities, because we got Camp Ramah here, which feeds 1,800 people a day at peak season.
They have a kosher kitchen.
Yeah,
so I can't cook in my kitchen.
State-of-the-art kitchen there. It's really
it's
impressive.
Amazing, yeah. But, aside from kosher, I'm dealing with people who might have a health issue and they can't have salt or no animal fats or something like that.
Yeah.
But there's never an issue for me. Like I say, don't worry about that. I'll deal with that. Because they come with this worried look on their face.
Yeah. Oh, is that checked out?
And I just make it work. Please tell me so I can be aware of it in advance.
I wonder if sometimes it doesn't make it easier, because it narrows down all the infinite choices that you can make. And
it does, although
simplifies.
They'll come and say, oh, my uncle, he's gluten-free, so we have to make the whole menu gluten-free. I'm like, we really don't. Why don't we make a menu that you like, and I'll make something gluten-free for your uncle.
Yeah.
Make adjustments. So, it's being flexible, also just really listening to your client and have a variety of foods.
Yeah. And food is, one of my exes she was a medical doctor, and her whole thing was, and a vegan, and her whole thing was, food is medicine. Let food be thy medicine. I think it was Hippocrates or somebody said that. So I wonder, do you think about that too? Like,
I used to tell my stepkids, you only get one body right at this moment, this time around.
We'll be able to transfer out here pretty soon.
The
neural links go on board, yeah.
Put good things in your body. Make good choices. You'll live longer.
Or you'll enjoy your life that you have more.
Everything in moderation.
Think about that as they're trying to get away from this, long life, and trying to get more towards health span, like how much of your years are active and productive versus, degenerative diseases like diabetes and things that come from the food choices that you make.
The food choices, the environment, all the plastics. I mean, everything's.
Yeah.
We're doomed, Brett.
I don't know if you know Eric, the fisherman who does the Thursday market.
Yeah, I know Eric.
I love getting those texts, because one of my favorite things to eat of the moment is very thinly sliced halibut with just a little dot of sesame oil and soy. Just nice. Just I can eat half a pound at a sitting with and feel guilty about it, but it's so good.
Yeah,
that's not I don't know, with climate change and, a glacier the size of whatever just broke off of Antarctica, and just that one alone over the next few years is going to raise the alkalinity of the water and change the whole. It's going to go up another 3 or 4 inches just from that. So seafood, I think it's just going to get harder and harder. Mm-hmm.
I remember we grew up eating crabs. In Maryland,
God, yeah.
Maryland blue crab.
Oof,
it's really hard
crabs.
to get crab now, and scallops, and a lot of seafood the prices are sky high, but the availability is diminished for sure.
It's going to get harder and harder. What about these lab cultured protein meats and such? Do you feel a little squeamish about that?
I've never really had experience with those.
What about impossible meat? That's basically lab grown.
Yeah, I don't really use those. I don't cook with those.
I just wonder about feeding a hungry planet. We're going to have to get inventive about the ways we produce calories. Yeah.
Possibly. I mean, those are convenience foods for people to cook. When they're hiring a chef, I'm not going to cook their Impossible Burgers for them.
No.
You know, they can cook them themselves. I'm going to make an amazing veggie burger with lots of vegetables in it. I'm not going to use, an already...
Do you have a recipe for
I'll have to send it to you.
I want to post up some of your recipes here. Because I
have 4 cookbooks full of recipes.
2 things. I love to eat, and I love to talk about eating.
Nice.
Yeah. So the role models and such, I wonder, you grew up in the world. Were there any eccentric chefs or waiters or anything that, took you under their wing and maybe influenced your worldviews about food and kitchen?
Because I worked in just a handful of restaurants when I first started, I would say Mary Sue and Susan were huge role models just because of the way they treated their employees and the way they really poured their heart and soul into the kitchen and the preparation.
Were they celebrity chefs when you
Not
first
at that
started?
time.
So you saw the whole thing come down then.
Yeah, they were just really the restaurant was packed and people were waiting around the corner. So it was just at the peak of their success. And then I moved on. So I found catering. And so really, honestly, I would admire other chefs and read about them or watch them on TV. And all the cooking shows started in the 90s. But I didn't, because I went into catering and my own business, I didn't work for them. So, I created my own style based on my travels in Europe.
Tell us about the travels. Well, I was going to ask you, the rise of the star chefs and everything, but why did you pick catering over restaurant work?
Okay, so you're in a restaurant, you're cooking the same menu usually, maybe the specials are different, and there's that the grind of get there by 3, do your prep, and then you're in service till 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and it can wear on you a little bit. So when I found catering, it was so awesome because we would not leisurely prep our foods, but we had the week to prep for the weekend parties, and then we were going into amazing homes. At the time, this was down in Los Angeles, so I was going into homes in Bel Air and Beverly Hills and, seeing a different home every time and seeing a different kitchen and making different meals because every time was different. Yeah. And that, to me, was really amazing.
I can totally see that attraction, yeah.
And I still do that.
The variety.
The variety. It wasn't like the grind. I mean, we certainly had our service period where, get the appetizers ready and get the buffet ready. And, but it was a shorter grind, but also it was a little bit more work because you have to load in and load out twice. So you load out from the kitchen, load into your client's home, and then at the end of the event, load up into the van and then get it back to the kitchen. So, I'm still doing that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And you must love it, or
very
you're
muscly.
stuck.
Yeah, I love it. It's been 40 years cooking, and I still love it. But I am thinking of ways to shift out of that day-to-day.
Into what?
Well,
Being a celebrity author, cookbook.
I do have my cookbooks, and I would say I'm known in the area for my cookbooks. I'm launching a private chef coaching program.
I think you might have mentioned that.
Yeah. So actually, it's starting in January. I want to.
Is it going to be online, or are you going to do it?
It's online.
In person? Okay.
It's online. They'll be live, and because people are going to sign up all over the country, hopefully. We'll be doing it on Zoom, and it will be an 8-week program. I'm not going to teach you how to cook. You already have to know how to cook.
Basic.
You have to have the knowledge of cooking, 2 to 3 years experience. But I am guiding them through setting up their business.
Okay, so you're maybe people who are working in a kitchen or a restaurant are looking to have their own gig, get a side hustle going that becomes their main hustle.
Exactly.
Nice.
It's very lucrative, and it's really fun, and you create relationships with your clients. There's 3 different kinds of private chefs, if you will. Like, there's a chef that might want to do drop-off meals, cook the foods in their own home, and drop them off.
Like Meals on Wheels that Help of Ojai does.
Yeah, but for wealthier clients. And then there's the chefs that go on site to their client's home. They could either have that one family, or they could have several families throughout the week, like my Monday client, my Wednesday client, my Friday client, cooking in their kitchen. And then there's the private chef that does catering, like I do. Dinner parties. I work with a lot of vacation rental properties, so they've rented this beautiful home. They're there for the weekend. They want to bring in a chef.
Family reunions sitting there.
Yeah, birthday parties, anniversaries, and then we go in. I have a team of a few chefs, and I have servers, so we can provide staff. But we basically focus on the food, and that's when we're going into detail with the client. Like, what do you imagine that you'd want to serve? Would you like to have beef served? Would you like it all plated and served as a 3 or 4 course meal? Or would you like to have a buffet or serve family style on platters that we pass along the table?
Yeah, that's my favorite.
I love family style too. And you can make it look really amazing. And so that's what I want to guide people through, because there's business setup, there's organization, and there's communication. There's a way to communicate with your clients from the beginning of booking the event till the actual event, and afterwards too.
You don't want any last minute surprises.
No, and you have to be super organized, but you have to communicate with your client, and you have to listen to them too. You know, you could have a huge ego and be like, well, this is what I want to serve. But if the client is saying, like, I would rather have that, you have to, as a private chef, you have to either be able to listen to your client or convince them that this is really what they should have. A little bit of
persuasion about this
definitely
would be better
persuasion
with what's going on.
Yeah.
Have you had any unreasonable requests? Anybody ask for something crazy?
Unreasonable?
Like what they wanted served, like
and that I couldn't produce?
Lion haunch or something.
Oh gosh, no. You know, pretty people are pretty basic. You know, chicken, meat, or fish. If you want red meat, do you want beef or lamb? Sometimes it's harder. If you give them too many choices, it's harder for them to decide. So you have to sort of guide them and also know what's available in your area. You know, again, Ojai has a
What are some of your favorite offerings here in Ojai? Like what are some of the things that are best here? I imagine the greens, they get turned over every 4 or 5 weeks, so probably really great fresh.
The greens are amazing. We have a farm right 5 minutes from here that has all these beautiful lettuces, different varieties of kale and escarole, and they have frisee. I just saw they had frisee.
Oh yeah, I love frisee.
And radicchio.
Oh,
and the treviso, the long elongated radicchio, the red leaf.
I'm not familiar with that.
That you can throw on a grill. And the citrus, you know, we're not quite into citrus season yet. It's just starting, but citrus, and we grow the world famous pixies here.
You incorporate that. Do you feel like a sense of local pride about incorporating that into your
Absolutely.
menus?
Oh my gosh, I've lived here.
What's your favorite pixie recipe?
Oh gosh, I have a whole chapter of pixie recipes in my Ojai cookbook.
Nice.
What's my favorite? Okay, here's one. Chicken with citrus and figs and olives.
Ooh, you got me.
I'll send you the recipe.
Yeah, anything with figs.
But it has whole cut up pixies or tangerines in it. And when you roast, I use usually like a chicken thigh with the bone in or bone off.
Much prefer chicken thighs to breast. Just for
so it's got olives and figs and the cut up oranges. It's got a little honey and lavender in it. And then you marinate it, roast it, and when you actually take a bite, you take a bite with a piece of the orange with the rind and everything.
Yeah.
and the fig,
That's
and
the
it's
best.
so delicious. That's a good one. I will definitely send you the recipe.
Yeah, I've got some chicken thighs thawing out right now.
Oh, that's a
I'm
good
looking
one.
forward.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I just think about Ojai as a bubble. You know, we're very fortunate here in many, many ways. But what are some of the other areas that you've catered to where maybe it was a little more challenging?
I wouldn't say challenging, but I go out to the San Ynez Valley a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And again, with the vacation rental properties that I have connections with, I'll go out there. Actually, I wrote a wine country cookbook, so
Wow.
I have a lot of recipes that are geared to go with wine and cheeses, and I have a whole chapter of cooking with grapes.
Oh, nice.
And
Yeah,
savory
it's very
dishes.
versatile because I grew up in grape country, and I can tell you it's like virtually infinite.
Where did you
variety.
grow up?
In western New York, near
Yeah.
Buffalo, not far from Buffalo, but in the foothills of the Allegheny Mountains. So you had your sheltered valleys where you could. I mean, this is some of the richest dairy country in the world. I think only the Isle of Guernsey or Jersey has higher butter fat than Chautauqua cows. They can get 10 or 11% butter fat.
That's amazing.
And when you see it float up to the top of the milk can, you're like, oh my God, this is what they mean by fat of the land. It really is. It's just so credible. And you get those, because the Amish don't have to pasteurize their products, so you get those amazing, amazing raw milk cheeses there. Just, I mean, it was, and we grew up on a farm, so my dad was a master farmer. He had everything. I mean, I never even got back to a place where people had the same understanding of food as I did until I moved to Ojai. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe I was a little spoiled. We're poor. My dad was the town grave digger, and he had a mail route, and he drove school bus and whatever he had to do. So the farm didn't even barely cover expenses. It just is a way to keep all 6 of his kids active and
fed.
busy. Yeah.
Wow. And you said they grow there. It's a big grape growing region there.
Yeah, a little closer to the shores of Lake Erie, where they have a little more sandy soil. And I'm trying to think of like Mogan David grapes come from there.
Oh, yeah.
Welch's grapes, Westfield, that's only like 10 miles from where I grew up.
Lots of Concord grapes.
Oh, Concords, Fredonias, Niagaras.
Wow. Well, back to the San Ynez Valley, where there's just, it's just booming there. I started cooking with grapes because there were so many. But you know how you have grapes in the fridge and you've eaten them, maybe put them on a cheese board, but then there's still some left in your fridge and you don't know what to do with them and you end up throwing them away or putting them in the freezer? Mm-hmm. Well, you can roast them just like you roast cherry tomatoes. So you take the grapes, take them off the vine, take them off the stem, put them on a sheet pan with a little olive oil, a little bit of salt if you're using a savory dish, and throw them in the oven for a half an hour. And the juices caramelize,
like
350. Some grapes, if they're larger, they might take a little longer, and then
I'm going to try that. That sounds fun.
So then those can go in a turkey salad, like a Waldorf salad, or you could throw them on top of a farro salad. Throw them in with farro. I have a whole chapter of cooking with grapes. And then you can also puree them and make sauces. So I have a number of different sauces. One's spicy with jalapeno. It goes on duck, or the roasted lamb sauce with garlic and shallots, and it goes on lamb with some almonds.
Oh, God, that sounds so good.
So it's a versatile fruit, just like tomatoes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, back to citrus, because one of the first, my earliest food memory was, around, because it's so cold and winters are so dark and long, that the first little burst of sunshine we would have would be our Christmas stockings would be full of Brazil nuts and tangerines.
Nice.
So, wow,
Sweet.
Hopefully I think about them. Maybe they were coming from Ojai. They very well could have. But my mom would peel them and put them on the furnace grate. And within just 10, 15, 20 minutes, it changes the texture of them completely. So they're like these little dry, papery sacks full of just unbelievably sweet juice, like the burst of flavor that you get from one of those when you dry out, it gets crackly. It's completely different.
Oh, I've never
I still
heard of
do
that.
that to this day. I think my mom actually got that from Mary Frances Kennedy Fisher. I think she wrote about that. My mom had all the cookbooks. She was obsessed.
So she cooked too at home.
Oh my goodness, yeah. She had a lot of issues, but man, just the whole rhythm of life that ran around food, because there was just so much preservation going on, and canning and the pickling. And, it was a big deal.
I would say people are more into that these days. It's not a traditional thing. More in European countries where, they're putting up their tomatoes for the year. I mean, it's like survival. They grow, they can, and that's what they eat for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I just loved it when she'd go down she'd send us down into the basement because it was so scary, and get the watermelon pickles.
Oh, I love watermelon pickles.
Ooh, just a sweet pickle like that, and you just chop them up and use them for whatever. Use them for toppings for.
My grandparents put that on their tables at the Golden Parrot. They had a relish tray in this beautiful antique handled thing that had 6 different dishes, and they would serve.
Totally see that.
I think I might still have one. They put watermelon pickles, apple butter, savory pickles, and I can't remember what else was in there, but that was my first experience with watermelon pickles. So delicious.
You know what they're really good on is tacos. And I'm trying to think.
Have you ever made them?
No, I never have.
I tried it.
Yeah.
They were.
Well,
I did
make them because I was always helping. We were all expected to do our share, so I technically have made them, but not since I've been an adult.
Yeah.
But now that I get thinking about it, maybe I should, because they're so delicious.
I'm going to try again. I sometimes don't look at recipes and just kind of wing it, which is often how I cook.
That's another question about chefs. Are you a engineer or an artist?
I'm an artist.
Yeah.
For sure. Writing the recipes for my cookbooks was very challenging because I don't measure and I just kind of cook with what I have. But I definitely tested out all the recipes and had to measure everything and, have them tested and so forth. But, I'm an artist. I can go into anybody's house and pull off a great meal.
Just from what they've got
what
in their
they
pantry.
have. Hopefully they have
That's me.
good
I
ingredients.
love to just improvise with what available.
I love
ingredients.
improvising. Yeah.
There's a great app that I found during the early days of pandemic that would just you just tell it what you got. Maybe you've got a can of sardines and some capers, and you got some rice noodles or something, and it just gives you some delicious, seafood. Or I don't know, sardines are really good.
Love sardines.
Yeah.
There's the whole tin fish craze now. Tin fish board instead of charcuterie.
I didn't know that, but that sounds great. When you said tin fish board, I thought the Council of Governors or the Association.
No. You pick 3 tins of some kind of fish, and you can sign up for these companies that will send you maybe 4 or 5 different varieties from Spain and different places.
Like a club?
Yeah, a club, a subscription. And then, so you put out maybe 3 different kinds, and you put a little cheese, some pickles, some mustard seeds, maybe some olives, and some crackers. That's a great no-cook meal for a midweek or an appetizer for a party. You have to know if your friends like that, because I had a friend over last week, and I said, I'm making tin fish board, and she kind of looked very hesitant. She goes, I don't really like that. And I was like, I should have asked her before she came over. But I loved it. I ate all. Luckily, I only opened up 2 cans. Smoked tuna.
Ooh.
And then there
were Tano. Is that what they call? Or what's the Italian name?
Tono.
Tono.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they had pickled mackerel, and I joined one of the subscriptions.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you put that on your catering menus?
I do now, yeah. I do.
That sounds lovely. So back to books. You've got how many now? 3?
So I have 4 books.
4.
I produced and self-published My Ojai books. The first Ojai book was called Taste of Ojai, and then
I'm in the Rotary Club, so that was an object of discussion that we have the Taste of Ojai event annually. We never made an issue out of it because what you're doing is year round and much better. But we have this gathering of 20, 25, 30 restaurants. They all bring one thing each. We used to have it at the end. I don't know if you ever been.
I actually attended those and
Did you sign up as a vendor? Were you a vendor?
Yeah, I was a vendor several times. Yeah.
What did you bring? Do you remember? What was your specialty dish? Tano.
No. Oh, I probably did my fig and olive tapenade, which I used to produce commercially. I'm not doing it anymore. But
yeah, is that tough to get these products out there? It seems like it's so competitive and regulated.
It is. It is regulated. You need to find a good co-packer, and that is another long story. But I didn't have a co-packer to depend on.
And that's somebody who
actually makes the product.
Order fulfillment.
No, they make the product for you in big vats, and I own the recipe, I own the rights, and they don't do any distribution at all.
You're on your own.
You have to get it from them and do all your own distribution.
It seems like there's got to be jobbers out there that take care of that. I know with advertising sales, there's companies that or people that
definitely
will sell, try to get you in with national brands and stuff.
They're large scale, and so are some of the co-packers, thousands of cases. But also, when you first are starting out, you don't have the investment to, have someone else do it. You want to make a little bit of money on it. It's a tough thing. You have to be really serious.
And easy to get over-promised and under-delivered from people.
Definitely. And you have to do all your own marketing. And I like the cookbooks better because, the Ojai cookbooks do well. I did produce another one 3-4 years ago. So
Another Taste of Ojai.
Another Taste of Ojai Flavors of the Valley. And that one really... I feel like really represents Ojai. I have a citrus chapter.
Yeah, a perfect gift or like a vacation takeaway. People come here, something.
Something that says Ojai.
Yeah, it sounds great.
It was shot and produced here. I do all the food styling. I love working with the photographers. And
food photography is its own genre. It's really amazing.
It's really fun.
Yeah.
It's really fun. I did the whole shoot at my house. But my photographer took shots all around the valley, so it really gives homage to every area.
And setting. The setting is very important.
Definitely, yeah. So, and then I have a Mediterranean cookbook, which is inspired by my travels in Europe. And
we didn't talk about that.
Oh, yeah, we forgot about that.
That's okay. We got plenty.
Started going to Europe in the early 90s. I would watch Julia Child after school on TV.
My mom was obsessed with Julia Child. And she had all the cookbooks and the Becker's Family Cookbook, The Joy of Cooking, and Graham Kerr, The Galloping Gourmet.
Yeah, I loved watching him. So it was General Hospital, Julia Child, and then Graham Kerr.
That was
my afternoon. Yeah. This is a long time ago, but she was always drinking wine and talking about France, and I was like, I want to do that. So I started traveling on my own and went to...
Did you have the sole meunière at the restaurant? Her first revelatory experience with food that she talks about in one of her cookbooks, the way the chef slid the sole fillet onto her plate with all the delicious butter and everything. I just thought I was hooked as soon as I read that paragraph.
Yeah, she was amazing. I went to Italy first, so I was trying the Tuscan fagioli at every
bean pasta.
Every restaurant.
Fagioli, that's bean something, right?
Yeah, pasta fagioli.
Yeah.
I tried that at every restaurant. And risotto, because that wasn't anything that we ever grew up having.
No, I love risotto. It's one of my favorites. It's none of those infinitely varieties that you can make, just limited by your creativity.
Definitely.
And polenta was the thing that my mom made it like once or twice, and I just thought it was the most delicious thing. Because we grow our own corn and dry it, grind it, cornmeal, just different, Johnny cakes and all the stuff that we made with corn. That was my favorite by far, polenta.
Yum. Mm-hmm. The first time I had risotto in Italy, they were asked if we want truffle on it. And we didn't.
White truffle or black truffle?
Yeah, white truffle. And they, with the little slicer on top.
A microplaner.
But we didn't know that they charged per.
Oh, wow.
And they kept
Probably
going and looking at us and going kind of slow. And we're just sitting there. And then finally my friend said, that's fine.
And, got the bill.
And we got the bill, and it was like 70 euros for like one dish of risotto.
And truffles are very overpowering too. You really got to be careful.
I mean, it was delicious, but we didn't know the protocol.
Yeah. You ever been on a truffle hunt?
No, but I'm going on one.
Did you
September.
see the movie Pig?
No.
You got to see that. If you're a food person, Nicolas Cage is a loner living in the wilderness, and he's got his pig who's like his best friend, and truffle hunting, and there's like one customer he has that comes in to supply restaurants buying his truffles. And it's a long story, but you understand the grief that he has experienced that drove him to solitude, and how he goes on this like incredible mission to get his pig back.
Is it a new movie?
No, I think it's a couple years old. Newish, but Nick Cage is perfectly cast as this eccentric rogue chef / hermit.
Oh, I gotta watch that.
But if you've been in the food business, it's just beautiful. One of my favorite food movies. I have a lot of favorite movies. Like Big Night is probably my next favorite.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah.
That one. Yeah.
So travels.
I keep traveling. Italy, Spain. I lived in Spain for 5 years.
Where in Spain?
I lived in Malaga.
Oh, wow. I love Andalusia. I spent a fair bit of time when I was in the service there. There was Cadiz Air Base.
Cadiz is so beautiful. We lived near Marbella, but like up in the mountains from the coast, kind of the way Ojai is. No, we lived in Monda. Yeah, I've been to Ronda. That's up further. But we lived in a little village called Monda. It had a castle at the top of the village.
Oh, sounds ideal.
I didn't
Lots
really
of paella.
speak Spanish very well, and people just thought I was shy because they thought I was Spanish with dark hair. And my daughter was born there, actually.
So you are or she's part Spanish then, huh?
No, because her dad and I aren't Spanish.
But born in Spain, that's something you can carry that around.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
But we had a great time there. We were private chefs there. We found people to cook for. And
really? Did you have to find them, or you had them already lined up?
No, we were just traveling because we wanted to leave the States, and we were in a Volkswagen for 2 years.
Oh, wow. A Volkswagen van?
A Volkswagen Westphalia van.
Oh, perfect.
We were traveling around for 2 years until we were like, okay, we need a house with a bathroom. And I'm like, well, we need to work. He went and worked at a restaurant. I don't really I loved catering more. So I actually went and got us a job at this, it was like a community of really nice houses. And I went and spoke to the manager or the owner of the property. And it was, all of her clientele were people coming from Norway and Switzerland and up from the north to come down to the south. And I said, well, you're hiring gardeners and housekeepers.
Why not
and
chefs?
Why not chefs? She goes, well, I've never done this before. And I said, well, why don't we come to your house and cook for you? Anyway, we ended up being her private chefs for a while and did many events. And
a good entree.
Yeah. And then she would turn us on to her renters there at the property.
And what did you cook in Spain? I'm imagining
we cooked California food.
Gorgeous sardines, but what about the paella?
We didn't.
Rabbit and snail.
Oh, we didn't do the Spanish food because it was so readily available. But
yeah,
we did other than Spanish food. We would use the amazing ingredients, but we kind of brought our California style and sort of infused it with Mediterranean. ingredients. So that's kind of really what my foods are now, is California Mediterranean.
So you've secured a niche.
I have a niche.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, my favorite, one of my favorite cities in the world is Granada, just because the way it's set up. But they do these, touristy things, but they're really fun. Gypsy Caves of Sacramento, where they do some flamenco, and you get a big bowl of paella.
Yeah, it's beautiful there. You get free tapas there.
Yeah.
With every drink. We used to love going to Granada.
Because I'll put the little slice of jamon serrano or whatever over the top of your glass to keep the flies out.
Yep, that's how
That's
it
tapas,
started.
it means toppers, right?
Was the top to keep the bugs out. Yeah. The
That's
pata
a great
negra, the Blackfoot pigs, is the best.
Better than the
jamon
Iberico.
I mean, that's the region, and the pata negra is the type
Blackfoot.
of pig. Yeah.
Where they just eat acorns and loll around in the sun all day.
I mean, when you live in Spain, every home has their own jamon, and
They
your
serve their
holder,
pig
and you just slice it off every
as you
day.
need,
Yep, we had that. Anyway, we lived there we were there for about 5 years. We would go up into Europe, which is so easy. We'd visit friends, and once we had our daughter, we decided to move back to the States, and we have never left, and have been here in Ojai for about 15 years.
Does it have the same kind of vibe, do you feel, like southern Spain?
It does. I mean, this is very Mediterranean feeling. People think, Mediterranean is warm all the time, but no, they get winter and rain, which is so lovely that we're getting rain.
Yeah, not as much as we need, but it's better than it just baking out. I wonder how it's going to be for whatever the food crops are that we're looking at right now for, I'll have to talk to Steve. I had Steve Sprinkle on the podcast. That was fun.
Nice. Yeah.
I'm sure you know Steve.
Oh, yeah, I know Steve.
Source. Do you do any of the community-supported agricultural subscriptions?
I don't, because I need larger quantities, because you might get like one of this or one of that.
But you never know what you're going to get.
Exactly. So I definitely buy from Farmer and the Cook and Steve. If I need bigger quantities, I'll call, and I go to BD's farm twice a week.
Earth Trine Farms.
Earth Trine. Yeah, I love going over there. Do you go over there?
I haven't been. I mean, of course, at the Sunday farmers market, I get some. He's always got the best greens. One thing I don't see here that I saw in Europe and really loved was lamb's quarters. The lamb's quarters greens. They're
the little mosh.
Little mosh.
I think that's what it is. He has that right now.
Does he?
Yeah, I just bought some last week.
Yeah, the lamb's quarters are they've got some body to them.
It's like a little bundle, and it's got the little green leaves.
Maybe. I think
it's
we're talking.
mosh.
Yeah.
How
do you spell that?
MACHE.
Okay, yes, I think that might be it.
They have that right now.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. I mean, if I need something, I'll just call the farmer. And then because usually my party's on Friday and Saturday, and by the time Sunday rolls around, I don't need the produce until the next Friday or Saturday. Yeah. So he's open on Tuesdays and Friday mornings.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Where?
At his farm on Koyama.
Oh, you got to drive up there.
Right there on Koyama.
Yeah, I know, with the big eucalyptus trees that he takes care of so meticulously.
I live 2 minutes from there, so I love going over there. And, I just try to support the stores here too. I don't buy from huge purveyors because I'm a private chef. I'm only buying smaller quantities. So, but I'll get fish from Eric, or I'll sometimes have to go up to Santa Barbara to the fish market.
Yeah, no, that is a well-known fish market, right? Because of the spotted prawns and all the other urchins and
he's
sea
been
urchins.
Open since the 80s. I met those guys. They were just two surfer dudes selling fish off the boat, and then they opened up their location in the mid-80s.
Yeah, now they're really thriving.
Yeah.
I know. I see that on the menus that people, the chefs will definitely make note of the provenance of that delicious seafood. Yeah.
They're doing really well.
So what's the future look like in catering and food. I imagine everything kind of got upended. Well, I'm certain it did during the pandemic. What's it looking like now?
Well, Brett, people are always going to eat. So I don't see the catering or restaurant business ever diminishing. I mean, look at how it thrived during the pandemic. People, I mean, for a short time, everything was closed. But then, people were ordering from restaurants and caterers. I was busy. I was dropping off food. I wouldn't go into people's homes. I was masked up. Here's your food, leaving it at the doorstep. But, as long as people are still alive, people are still going to eat. And that's why this is such a great business.
Yeah, I could see that. Plus people, the fellowship and the camaraderie and the community that people build around their food and their meals and everything.
Absolutely. People really went into cooking again because they were working out of their homes, and all the posts of all making sourdough bread and making this and making that. But after about 4 or 5 months, people didn't want to cook as much anymore, so they were the restaurants were packed all the time.
Or even if they were still cooking, they wanted to cook for each other. They didn't want to just have these eating over the sink, kind of meals.
No, they learned how to be in the kitchen again. Yeah. I mean, I've been in the business for 40 years, and I, knock on wood, I've never had to really advertise. It's word of mouth. People like what I do. I create relationships with my clients, and then they recommend me to other people. So that's really what I want to impart with my coaching, because,
relationships.
Relationship is huge, calling people and, a year later and wishing them a happy anniversary after you catered their wedding, or there's a protocol, and there's a way to communicate with people to make them feel welcome. So,
and to drive that repeat business.
It does help with that too. Yeah.
So, how did you get to Ojai? I don't think we spoke specifically about that.
I met someone here and moved to Ojai.
Okay.
I'm not
That's
with
not
that
uncommon
person anymore, but I raised my daughter here, and her dad was here too, so he is still here. So we raised her together here separately, and that really worked out well.
Yeah, it's a great place for raising kids.
Yeah,
My kids can't wait to get away, but I think they definitely have a nostalgic view of Ojai as they're adults now.
Yeah, I hope my daughter has that view. She's 20, and she's back and forth from school.
Not until she's like 26,
Maybe she has 27. To be a little older, but she's in and out because she's at school still. But it's been a great place. This is the longest place I've ever lived in my entire life.
Me too.
I have moved 39 times in my life.
Wow.
I've lived in so many different places.
Not counting living in a Westphalia van
I
in the
counted
south
that.
of Europe.
I counted
so
that.
All those moves separately there? Okay.
Yeah.
Because that would add up fast.
Oh, not the traveling part.
Okay.
Just the actual living.
Okay.
Yeah, but I have moved many, many times. I'm really good at moving. But I've lived in this one house for 7 years. That's pretty long for me. I love living here, and I travel a lot still, and I go to Europe every year, at least twice a year. I go to Mexico, and
definitely one of the world's great cuisines, Mexico. I just find Mexican food
is so amazing there.
And so the regional specialties. When I lived on the border, it was on the Sonoran border, and the barbacoa that they would make there. It's just everybody has their own special recipe, but they
and the chilies and the garlic and the spices and. Yeah, actually, I'm making salsa matcha on Thursday. I have all the chilies and all the ingredients, and I'm going to be making a big batch.
Or moles. Just moles alone puts them in the first rank. I got some mole negro in my refrigerator right now. I'm just waiting for my son to get here so we can feast. But yeah. So what other cuisines do you... I had a guy tell me this mocking me because I said, I love Japanese food. It's one of the world's great cuisines. I didn't have... then he was like, no, it's all derivative, and it's some Chinese and this and that, and they don't have any original thoughts about food. And I didn't have an answer for him. I was like, oh, maybe you're right. Maybe it isn't that good. But they have 400 different names, different types of salt.
400, wow.
If any culture's cuisine has 400 different varieties of salt.
That's crazy. I want to go there just for that.
Yeah.
I've never been to Asia. I'll tell you what my favorite cuisine is. Two, Greek food and Middle Eastern food. I love the spices in the Middle Eastern food, and I love the simplicity. Sumac and za'atar, and I love coriander, and the ingredients are simple, but they are flavored so well. And Greek food is kind of the opposite because it's really simple. Like, I go to Greece every year. That's one of my favorite places. But lemon on a piece of fish, or like some grilled sardines and just some grilled lemon juice on there. It's just so delicious. Oh my gosh. And their cheeses are so amazing, and the people are just so welcoming.
Yeah, the sheep milk feta that you get in Greece is not like you're going to find in a supermarket around here at all.
I go to Crete, and they make mizithra, which is their fresh goat's milk cheese. It's like really soft, and then they end up aging it, and you can buy aged mizithra here, but it's just so soft and delicious. It's not grainy like a ricotta cheese. It's just smooth, and they put it in everything. It's not like that. It's like it's more like the texture of like a soft goat. I mean, it's fresh goat cheese basically.
Chèvre.
It's so good.
Oh, there's a Lebanese restaurant in Ventura. Not to give them free advertising or whatever, but it is a revelation. It's the Lebanese Kitchen. It's in a hole-in-the-wall place off Ashwood. But, oh my goodness, just the garlic paste that comes with every meal. And the now I can't remember the name of their specialty there, but the spiced, marinated, grilled chicken where it's all crusty on the outside and soft on the inside.
I have to go
Just
there.
A great texture.
That sounds
I love
amazing.
that place.
I love Lebanese food.
$13, you get a combo plate with a little bit of everything. It's just
yum. Is it like a restaurant or more like a...
It's a restaurant, but they only have like maybe 4 tables in there.
Oh.
But they do brisk takeout business. It's always, it's always the home community.
Yeah,
it's always
that sounds
they're cooking
good.
for each other.
I'm going to go there this afternoon.
Yeah, I know. I'm thinking about it now too. Jonathan Gold had that. Well, I got to moderate a panel with him. I was on stage with him. That was a big treat for me because, Jonathan Gold is the only food writer to win a Pulitzer, and I got to have a meal with him here in Ojai at Steve Sprinkle's. It was the only place I could think of who would understand who that was, and Steve really came through with just bringing stuff out until we told him to stop. But those delicious sopas and bean paste and all the kind of southern Mexican cuisine. But Jonathan Gold said that people come from all over. He's talking about New York and Los Angeles. And New York has really some of the best food in the world. But he says people come from all over the world to New York to cook for New Yorkers. They come from all over the world to Los Angeles to cook for each other. I thought that was the most brilliant way to put it, because these people build their communities around these little neighborhood ethnic restaurants. And it's like, that's why Los Angeles might very well be the capital of the food world, because of the diversity. It isn't just like, oh, here's a Thai restaurant opened up. No, it's like, it's a northern Thai street market food with, those little fancy little sausages they make. Or no, it's got, southern Thai with the, Koh Samui, where they got a little Malaysian influence. And I mean, it's like so specific that it's just, you just don't find it anywhere else.
And it's so huge. There's all these little pockets everywhere.
I know. I really used to go down to LA at least once or twice a month, but I haven't in years, not since the pandemic, just to go check out one of Jonathan Gold's top 100 restaurants. Really, it's great to just see these places stuck in a hole in the wall in the San Gabriel Valley that, maybe they're not doing very well, but they're just getting by. All the family works there.
And they're doing more like pop-ups where a chef or they'll just like kind of move into another restaurant on their day off.
Yeah.
and have like a
ghost kitchens.
Is that what they're called?
I think they are. It's like where you're basically, one restaurant kind of turns over their kitchen to another one that just exists only as like
once a
takeout.
week. Yeah. That's very popular. They're not really doing that up here.
No.
In Ojai. But we've got some new places.
Yeah, we're spoiled here. People don't, if we didn't have the tourism, we would have like, Caro's or something, and that would be about it.
Yeah, tourism
a town of 8,000
great.
people cannot sustain these amazing restaurants that we have.
What do you think about all these new places opening up and new influx of people moving to the valley?
I have mixed feelings. Mostly I just wish I had more money so I could eat out more because there's so much. The food definitely got kicked up a level since the pandemic.
Yeah.
My problem with the people who have moved here since the pandemic is a lot of them don't really have any skin in the game. They have money. They're sort of isolated from the community flow and, the tides. They don't really incorporate themselves in. However, that's always been the case. People sort themselves out. There are people that I know, a lot of them, that have just showed up in the last year or two, and they get involved in all the right ways. And you can tell they're really fitting in. And then there's other people who think we're just a bunch of hicks and idiots,
or hippies.
Yeah, or whatever it is. They just don't gel. So they sort themselves out. But we definitely had.
Or they move.
Yeah, they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Anyway, a couple questions. One, we talked about. Well, let's start with the question I asked about the grab and go. Like if you know a fire's coming or an earthquake or whatever, and you gotta grab a few things besides your family and your pets. Yeah, what are going to be your most prized possessions that you have that you would want to save? With a fire bearing down on you, kind of a situation. I've
got a box of pictures. The rest, everything else is on the cloud.
Yeah.
My computer, my laptop, my knives. I'd probably dump my drawer of knives into a box and throw those in the van.
Any pans?
Gosh, I just bought some new pans. I love all-clad pans. I should probably grab those too.
Yeah.
Oh, I have everything you could possibly need in a kitchen, but the knives are worth saving, and I mean, what do you grab? I mean, if the fire's right outside the door,
you got to make some choices.
That's a good question.
You're going to get your tools of the trade, your knives, and then your memories, the photographs.
The one box of photos, they're from a long time ago, so I don't have those scanned anywhere, so maybe I should get that done one of these days.
That's something for me to think about too.
Yeah.
I know exactly where they are and what I need to do, but it's like overwhelming because there's a bunch of them. Mm-hmm. And the other question was your fantasy dinner guests, and what would you cook for them? You've thought about this, I know.
I've thought about it, but I don't have an answer. My fantasy guest.
What about Julia Child? Or would you be too intimidated to cook for her?
Well, she's not here. It's a fantasy.
This is fantasy, yeah.
Oh gosh, I don't know if I can answer this. And what I would cook. I would cook what they want to eat.
What would you hope that they wanted to eat? So I'm asking, what would be your fantasy meal as well?
I have not. I need more time for this. What would I make?
Well, why don't you think about it and then call in, leave me a voicemail, and then I'll post that up on the podcast.
All right.
That might
That's
be
a
fun.
good one. Yeah, I really have to put some more thought into that.
So, anything else do you want to talk about? I mean, we've already gone over time here. Is there anything on your mind or anything related to food in Ojai that you want people to know or to discuss or to think about?
Well, I love to hear back from my readers when they try my recipes.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes people forget about that. So if you have the cookbook, A Taste of Ojai, and you love one of the recipes, reach out to me through Instagram, Private Chef Robin, or my website, privatechefrobin.com. And I also love doing cooking classes, and I don't have a place to hold a cooking class.
Isn't Lavender Inn, did they open their kitchen?
No, they haven't opened up their kitchen.
I thought they were hosting events there, and I thought you were.
I used to, yeah, but they are not doing that any longer.
Okay.
So, yeah, I did regular classes there. Anybody have a kitchen I can use?
Well, the Ojai Valley Inn has one of the grandest kitchens in the world at their new farmhouse. Have you been there yet?
I have.
That's really impressive.
But they're not renting out their kitchen like that.
Well, they are for the right amount of money.
Yeah. So if anybody has a beautiful kitchen that they would like me to host some cooking classes once a month,
I could see that being a really fun thing.
I would love to do that.
A group of friends to get together, especially if a few guests from out of town.
Well, I'll go to your house. I'll go to anybody's house and do the cooking class, but I'd like to host public classes once a month or maybe once a quarter so that they're ongoing classes. Mm-hmm. And we cook recipes.
And you grow together with your cohort and the things that you do, the classes that they together over time.
Definitely. And we group people together. Maybe if it's a small group, each person makes a dish, and then I pull it all together. We sit down at the table and eat it together. But if it's a larger group, then I'll pair couples together, and we prepare the dishes and talk about some little kitchen wisdom and little kitchen tips that you can walk away with saying, oh, wow, I never thought about that. One of my biggest tips in the kitchen is,
I love kitchen
this
tips.
Is so simple, but you know how when you're cutting on a cutting board and it kind of, when you're cutting, it's sliding across the counter a little bit? So just wet a paper towel or a cloth towel and put it under your cutting board, and it helps it
grips.
stick. It grips on there.
That's very simple.
It's a simple little kitchen tip.
Yeah. Well, I learned to microwave lemons to get more juice out of them.
Oh, wow.
Just like 15 seconds.
I don't have a
huge
microwave.
Amount of yield. You can tell. That's
a great idea. I don't have a microwave, though, but I'll have to try it sometime.
Or even just boil it in a little water, I think. Just getting the temperature up, it releases more of the juice.
Love that. I'm just about to make some lemon marmalade. I'm going to try that.
Ooh, love that. Just the idea of lemon marmalade. Or lemon curd is one of my favorites.
Lemon curd, too, yeah.
Yeah. We're spoiled here in Ojai, aren't we?
We are.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Hey everyone, Brett Bradigan. Just thinking out loud. So, very lively discussion with Robin. I did get to share some of my reminiscences, which food is notorious for doing. You imagine sitting in the kitchen, Marcel Proust with his Madeleine being dipped into his tea, remembering the hollyhocks outside of his boyhood home with his mother and the warmth of the kitchen, and how that informed so much of his work. And such a brilliant writer. He didn't write about food, obviously, but just how food triggers our memories and how central it is, because it engages so much of our senses, I think. You know, the memories that form around food are deeper and more hooked into our psyche because it involves your sense of smell, your taste, the textures of the food, and everything that goes around it. It amplifies your memories. So it's no surprise that one smell of a certain, pomegranate juice or a hot dog roasting or something can put you back in a place and watch the years melt away. So, what a treat it was for me, and I hope for you. Anyway, that's it for this episode of Ojai Talk of the Town. We'll keep an ear out for you.